This is the Joe Mullins Show, showcasing the vibrant spirit of Florida and America's innovative creators. This is the place for captivating conversations, inspiring guests, and industry professionals celebrating the best place in the world to live, shop, work, and play. And now, your host, County Commissioner, entrepreneur, and freedom advocate, Joe Mullins.
Hello, Florida. This is Joe Mullins of the Live, Work, Shop, Play Show, and welcome to the greatest state and the greatest country in the world. This is why Florida is one of the most ideal states to live, work, shop, and play because of guests like I have today. I've got the former Speaker of the House of the state of Florida, Paul Renner, who is currently running for governor. Now, Paul, you're running for governor of the great state of Florida.
That's correct. It's great to be with you.
You know, it's great. I just got in, and I tell you, I've heard you speak. You've really rolled your sleeves up, watching you run around from community to community. We got listeners all the way from Jacksonville to Sarasota and all the way in between. You've been in Orlando. I've seen you. It's kind of like wherever I go, I see the speaker talking, and I see you at events. But you brought up something that I didn't realize how is crucial and how fortunate we are in the state of Florida, how strong our government has been over the last 4 to 8 years, actually more than that, the last 8 to 10 years, even when Governor Scott was in and a continuation to Governor DeSantis, and how important those roles were. And we almost lost that governorship when DeSantis ran the first time, and God knows what would have happened. But I was in the airport, and I was in Atlanta. I was coming back from one of the games up there to make this show because I knew how important it was to be able to get you on, and it's an honor to have you here. And I was going through the airport, and I realized there was massive delays. There was 2 lines open, people just mean, grumpy, going at each other. And it dawned on me, the government shut down.
Right.
Our government is running halfway right now. They don't have the workers. They don't have the people. I even went to think about the hotel I was staying in. The hotel I was staying in, and I interviewed a Congressman Fine was on there, and I interviewed him, and he was talking about the shutdown and everything. And he said, Joe, where are you? And I looked up and I said, I'm at the Waverly in Atlanta. And he goes, it looks dead there. And I said, yeah, it is. And I said, I talked to the lady. There was one person at the desk, and she said, I said, why are y'all so slow? She said, normally we have a lot of conventions set, and we got canceled because the government shut down. This has impacted and affected so many things like COVID, but yet you're under your leadership and some of the other strong people that we had, Florida felt very minimal impact from it. Let's talk a little bit about the state of Florida, the government shutdown, and why you think you need to be the next governor.
Yeah, I was there, and you remember the rest of the country was shut down. We were open in the state of Florida and voted to make sure we're protecting people's medical freedom, or people were getting fired for not taking a COVID shot and so forth. Make sure that, more importantly, and equally importantly, I should say, that the businesses were open. Businesses shut down and never reopened in many of these states because they put so much focus on something that proved not to be true and didn't take a balanced approach. It's one thing to fight a virus like COVID. It's another to completely shut everything else down to try to fight it. And it was a huge mistake. The governor was right to keep the state open. And look, whether it's shutdowns, we don't do shutdowns in Florida. We balance our budget. We had record tax relief while I was speaker, and we actually paid down the little bit of state debt we have left. We paid down in advance. We paid it down early. No one will ever confuse us for the federal government.
Now, when you were, and I should say speaker, but you're a good friend, and I apologize if I go to the word Paul again. But
no, you're good.
But you've always been that way. That's one of the beautiful things about you. You're like, don't call me my title, just call me Paul. I'm here to help. I want to help you. I want to work with you. I want to get this done together with you. As a county commissioner, as chairman of that county commission and a commissioner on there for that term, you were phenomenal in checking in with us, calling, making sure everything was okay, going, Joe, what are you guys thinking down there with this? Trying to get an explanation before you cast a judgment for the crazy things that we sent up to Tallahassee that request. But you would always call and check. And very hands-on. You really, truly have always been roll the sleeves up, get engaged, and get in the weeds with us. But you not get in there and be dysfunctional, but get in there and help us get out of it. As a commissioner, I had a lot of pressure. You need to shut down. You need to do this. But you'd always call and say, hey, Joe, we got your back. Do the right thing for the community. You can't devastate your community. And I remember things out of you guys and our county manager. If the cure is worse than the disease, you've got a major, major problem on your hand. And shutting down your community, shutting down your economy, we found out was far far big of a impact and a disaster than COVID ever could have dreamed.
Yeah, that's right. And you call me Paul, but my wife says, "Hey, take out the garbage," and she'll do that as governor. So she keeps me grounded. So Paul is perfectly great. And you're right, Joe. You know, you got to hear from everybody. And one of the things I believe about leadership is leadership much or more about listening to voters than talking at voters. And we're doing just that going across the state. And when you listen to voters, just like when you go back and talk to your local elected officials, you know, we've got some grand idea in Tallahassee, and then you start talking to people and you say, oh, we didn't think about that. And you get the balanced approach, and that actually leads to good policy, which is why the state's been so successful by making sure we're all in this together. And we better listen to all sides and everybody up and down to make sure we're doing it right. Now, if it's philosophical, we have some philosophical differences. Obviously, we'll pursue and stay on principle. But in many cases, something that sounds simple, that sounds like a bumper sticker, if it's put into practice, may be pretty damaging. As you said, we can never have the cure that's, you know, worse than or the remedy that's worse than the cure or whatever you just said. Yeah. We don't want that. And so it really goes down to listening to people and getting feedback from everyone and then making a decision, an informed decision. And that's what I'll do as governor.
Well, when we were getting attacked, that was one of the biggest things that I look up. They go, well, we're calling the governor. We're going to get you removed. And I just looked up and I went, go ahead. We're going to call the speaker. I said, go ahead. We just talked to him. We're all in sync together. And that's one thing you did. You kept us all together. You kept us communicating, kept us focusing on instead of these personal battles, you kept us focused on being there and serving the people, which has been a big, big thing for you. You know, one of the things that I think I've heard, and I'll ask it early in this interview, and I'll say it. I heard two people talking and they said, how do you stop the momentum of a guy who's declared he's going to run for governor 7 months ago, that's running around and giving everybody the perception that he's going to win this and that he's so far ahead of everyone and that he's just showing up at all these places, these photo ops, so to say. And the other guy looked up at him and said, yeah, it sounds like Kamala Harris. And Trump was outspin him, outran, was everywhere, you know, on TV spinning. And then Trump came out and beat her and won. When you have someone that's spreading a message that's of true that people resonate to, you make more of an impact than raising millions and millions and millions of dollars or going out there and being at every ribbon cutting or chamber function or one of those events. Now, what is your thoughts on that and you getting in the race and your strategy with that?
I think the things, especially for governor, is who's got the leadership experience to run the third largest state in the country. Pretty big job, something that you ought to have led in some form or fashion. I've done that 20 years in the military. It was in 2 wars. I had leadership throughout that time. As a state attorney, I was selected to be a leader in supervising misdemeanor attorneys. I was a leader in the felony trial unit before I left. And then, of course, a leader in the state house and one of the key state leaders to build what we call the free state of Florida with Governor DeSantis in 2 years that were the most conservative and consequential legislative sessions, I believe, in Florida's history. And many would say that. And so who has the leadership experience? Who's delivered results? And as I mentioned, I've delivered those results. It's one thing to talk about it. We'll all talk about all the conservative stuff we're going to do, but who can actually get it done? And then lastly, combining those two is who do you trust to handle whatever comes our way? We know there's another, I hope not another COVID, but there's another hurricane around the corner. There's some surprise out there. There's some major leadership challenge, whether it's navigating AI on our workforce. There's something that's coming, and you better have somebody who's had leadership under pressure, who's had positions of trust. And I've had that throughout my life, fighting for my country, fighting for my state, and I'll do it as governor.
Now, as we talk about some of the things that you guys have done in the state and on the state level, making this an ideal state to live in, to work in, to shop in, to play in, you know, this show kind of stemmed out that leadership. It kind of came out and said, hey, why is Florida doing things so differently and being successful? And we're doing what we're told, and we're failing and we're falling. We're just trying to be, they're being rebels, and we're trying to be, it almost reminds me of our history, how that group came out and said, we're not going to be like England. We don't want to be like England. We want to be our own country, our own mindset. And we went out there and set, Florida's kind of taken that. I can't imagine this country right now had Biden won, which he did, and Florida didn't stand. Florida you guys literally saved this country.
I believe that, and other states, other Republican states have followed, like, what's Florida doing on this? And Joe, you nailed it, it really is what made America great to begin with, which is going back to those foundational principles. It's not a mystery. It's no secret sauce that we have. The secret sauce is following the American way that built this country into the strongest, freest, most prosperous nation on earth in history. And we've done that. We see people flooding into our state. People vote with their feet, whether it's businesses or individuals, because they want freedom, they want prosperity, they want quality of life, they want good decisions. They don't want government to, tell them 20 different ways and play a bad game of Mother May I with their small businesses. And that for that reason, we have, I think, the number one state for business startups, whether it's men or women or minorities. We have a great business environment, no income tax, light regulation. Florida is the lowest next to New Hampshire, the cheapest state budget. So less than $5,000 a person. That's a pretty good deal for all state government every year. And we're proud of that. We try to be as lean as possible. What government doesn't have to do should be back in your pocket in the form of tax relief. And so we've applied that to state government, and we'll continue it when I'm governor.
Now, people don't realize, and I learned it by the Speaker of the House of Georgia, how important the role of a speaker is. And I want to get into that a little bit. I actually, by talking to him, looked at him one day and I said, this is probably the most important man and powerful man in government. And you're getting it. You form the budget. You help control the money, the spending. You basically control the checkbook. You make very big appointments. Being a speaker, what did that give you in experience? Obviously, your colleagues felt very strongly that you could do that leadership because it's one person a year out of how many people were in the state house?
Yeah, 120 in the state house, 40 senators in our state system.
Yeah, it's very, very, a very big privilege to serve in that role. But he told me, he said, with that role is also a tremendous amount of leadership that you have to have, a tremendous amount of tolerance you have to have. It was just amazing. But being speaker, tell me how that helped you and what made you, what it did to form you into who you are today.
Well, I applied veteran values. So 20 years in the military, love of country, putting service above ourselves, but also focusing on the mission and putting the mission first. And politics is full of ego. It's full of pettiness. And let's say it's full of politics. And that's true in the Republican Party as well as the Democrat Party. And so you have to overcome that. And you alluded to it earlier. You get your feelings hurt or whatnot, criticize in private, behind closed doors, work it out. Come in, praise in public, united as a party, united. And that's how we got so much done. And I had one half of the two chambers, so we had to get the Senate to go along with some of the things that we did. We were successful, and we partnered with them to do some of the things that they wanted to do. We didn't get everything we wanted, but we got a lot of what we wanted. And as I said, it was very conservative, very consequential to legislative sessions and partnering with the governor to deliver those wins where he would sign it. And we were glad to have a governor that would do that.
Now, as speaker or in your term of government, have you ever faced a situation like our country's facing right now with a shutdown in government where we're being devastated in so many other ways? And how would you take that leadership and keep that from ever happening in the state of Florida, or minimizing the impact to happen on a national level?
Well, it does mean collaboration at the state level. You can't single-handedly force those guys to go back and do their job, but I would encourage them to work through those differences, not give up on principle. Don't get me wrong, and I think that's where we are. The Democrats need to remember we won the election. President Trump is president, not Kamala Harris. And there ought to be a little bit of deference to the will of we the people. And in my opinion, we're less than a year out. And so I think they need to defer and realize that the president got elected, the Republican House got elected, the Republican Senate got elected. They didn't. And where there's this difference, they need to reopen the government.
Well, you're affecting so many ways. Like the hotel said, our employees, our wait staff, our housekeeping services, all of it has been cut back extremely because we're not doing things here. I've had banks start sending me information and I went, what is going on here? Saying, hey, are you impacted by the government shutdown? Do you need relief on your loans? And I started thinking so many businesses depend on our government, those conferences, the government money, the funding, the IRS, the FEMA, my God, if Florida got hit by a hurricane right now,
right,
what would happen?
Right.
And that's what Senator Scott was just on talking about, how devastated Florida would be, or any state would be, if we had a disaster.
Well, I'll tell you, and I'll do this as governor, is weaning us off the federal government as much as we can. Now we're dependent on the federal government for our Medicaid for the poor, the health care for the poor. We split that cost with the federal government. Couldn't bear that all on our own. But as much as we can, weaning ourselves off of dependence on the federal government. I'll take hurricanes as an example, and I praise the governor for the job he's done. The DEM AM chair, Kevin, has done a great job, Kevin Guthrie. And so we want to make sure we can take care of people in emergencies like that without the federal government's intervention or without needing them. Now, on the back end, there's a lot of reimbursements for local, for the state governments. We do need that. But as governor, I want to make sure I'm not dependent on a dysfunctional federal government to deliver the needs of the people of Florida. And we're putting Florida first. That's really our motto, is put Florida first. And we're going to make sure we have independence where we need it, so that we're not dependent on federal help if it doesn't come.
Well, that's one thing I did as a commissioner when I went to the national commission meetings that I served on the boards. So many people were from Hawaii, California, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, and they were saying, hey, we need money. We need money. We need y'all to send it to us. We're so dependent on it. And I asked them, I said, why don't y'all just open up like Florida? And the guys looked at me and went, oh, my God, we can't open up like y'all. Y'all are walking over dead bodies. And I said, that's the media saying that. I said, honestly, I've just left Florida and I've never stepped over a dead body in my life. And I probably wouldn't be here if I did. I'd be so in shock because I said, that's the media. That's the propaganda. As the next governor of the great state of Florida, how do you anticipate dealing with those bloggers and the media? Because they are truly creating such a division and such chaos in our country. It's not media anymore. It's just flat out, it's smut and it's mess.
Yeah, look, I would tell you that I think the left in this country is all about destroying norms, whether it's constitutional norms, anti-Second Amendment, anti-First Amendment, destroying the notion of family. There's two sexes, male and female, boys and girls sports. We don't do that in Florida. Transgender surgeries on minors. So we've really kind of, again, reestablished just common sense American values to make sure that we are continuing down the path and not letting these crazies dominate or influence where we're going to go. And as speaker, it wasn't in my job description to go after school board races and make sure we're flipping those chambers to put common sense conservatives in those roles. I did it. I did it just as recently as 2024 and put money in there that I don't have to run for governor. That's what leaders do. I did the same thing on the amendments. There were George Soros funded amendments, Amendment 3 and 4, and they were a bunch of lies, over $100 million to tell people something that wasn't what these amendments would do. And so coming after those, again, not in the job description of a speaker or a governor, our governor did it, I did it, and I'll continue to do it as governor. So if you want somebody who's going to lean in and continue to press on the accelerator on our freedom agenda and keep the free state of Florida what it is, I'll do that.
You've been a very big proponent of school boards and school board races and education. I've known you. You were very active communities, very active in the. What does that come from?
So I'm a preacher. My dad was a minister. Mom was a school teacher. So public service is kind of burned into me and in a good way. And so when I graduated from college, I went into the United States Navy. When I was 23 years of age, I'm on a ship, navigating through mine-infested waters. We had these minefields we knew about, but they would break off and then they were freezing. We had people that were killed, American servicemen that were killed or injured as a result of that. And so there were oftentimes I'd get a lookout who was even younger than me, 18 years old, saying, sir, come here. And you go over and see there's a mine in our path. We'd have to deviate around that to protect the people that were sleeping at that time. And I had that position of trust at age 23. Also as a boat officer, we took an EOD team out to actually destroy those mines. And every mine we destroyed was one less mine that could kill an American serviceman. And so, again, I started my life fighting for my country. Service has been at the core of what I do, and I'm not going to let Florida go backwards. I believe we need to continue moving forward. The governor's done a great job. I'll partner with President Trump to be his best partner here in Florida. We're going to keep moving forward. As I've always fought, whether it's for the country or our state, I'll continue to fight as governor.
Now, let's talk a little bit about agriculture. It's the number 2 for our state driven in the community, but it's one of the world. Our cattlemen, our vegetables, our potato chips, just out of Flagler County, which is a county you and I both know well. I served in and you served for. How are we going to continue this and protect the great state of Florida in the agriculture part?
Well, you're absolutely right. And during COVID, people talked about food insecurity, and most of us are thinking, what is that? Which means you may go into the grocery store and there's no meat, or there's no bread, or there's no milk. And remember some of the milk, the issues that some of the pregnant women had. And so we've got to make sure we preserve our agriculture. And you're right. Some of the dominant agriculture in the whole eastern seaboard comes right out of our state. And a lot of people don't know that. We've got to preserve it. We have an amendment on the ballot next year to remove tangible property taxes from our farmers. I think that's a good idea. We've got to make them competitive with some folks in other parts of the world that get subsidized, that don't have the same growing practices, that their food just not as good and healthy as our food is. We want to take care of our farmers and ranchers.
Now I'm going to flip my hat here and talk as a sports and entertainment agent in the field there, the career that I have. So many events that were held across the country now are looking for new homes. They're looking for new places. It's almost dreadful when we have events out in California now because people are going, we don't want to go out. And rightfully so. The last event we had was a national championship. One of our clients was sitting at a skybox, and she was a 74-year-old lady. She touched the countertop, rubbed her eyes. Next thing we know, she fell to the ground and she started turning ghost white.
Wow.
She had the paramedics came in. We thought she was having a heart attack. They said, oh my God, this lady's exposed to fentanyl. And immediately her husband said, my wife has never touched a drug. She doesn't do stuff like this. We're good Southern Baptist Christian people.
Right.
And what we found out that one of the servers or one of the staff members had been doing fentanyl off the counter, cocaine or type fentanyl off the counter, left a little residue. People don't want to go there because of public safety. They don't want to go there and walk over all the homeless people, all the camps there. They don't want to go out there and see all the trash and the filth that's going on. So they're looking to bring these events over. As governor, how do you protect that? And how do you continue to put us on the forefront of bringing events that bring billions of dollars to the industry?
Well, and you see cities and counties and states that are sanctuary cities, or that allow, this defund the police mentality where they don't respect cops, where crime has spiked. And here in Florida, we honor our cops. We take care of law enforcement. We let them do their jobs. That's why we don't need the National Guard in Florida, because we let them do their jobs and they take care of business. So I'll always have the back of our law enforcement, our sheriffs, our police chiefs, and the men and women who serve in those capacities. And that is the first priority of government. You've got to get that right, because if you don't get that right, businesses can't thrive. Kids can't walk to and from school. They can't play in the streets because the streets aren't safe. Same thing with illegal immigration. We've seen the influx of these gang members that are coming across the border. We will always be a state that respects law and order. When I'm governor, I will be the only prosecutor race. And so I understand what it means to stand up for victims. I understand what it means to put bad people behind bars that are going to continually come back and reoffend and hurt people. It's one thing if a guy's a young guy and does things that are young and dumb and don't hurt anybody, to give them a second chance. It's a different thing to have these violent habitual criminals that people are letting out over and over again with no bond and just letting them back on the streets, and they reoffend within days, if not hours.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your background real quick as we wind down to get to the top of the hour. Your background is you grew up where, your occupation?
Sure. Yeah, I was born in Atlanta at St. Joseph's Hospital. I was there only 6 months. So I'm a near native Floridian. We moved into Merritt Island. My dad, as I mentioned, was a minister. We lived in Merritt Island. We lived in Vero Beach. I moved to Jacksonville. My dad was a Methodist minister. He left and started his own non-denominational church there in Jacksonville so we could put down some roots, and grew up in public schools. My mom was a public school teacher. So I was at Terry Parker High School in Jacksonville and went off to Davidson College in North Carolina. As I mentioned, joined the Navy 20 years. In between that, after active duty, I got out and I went to law school at University of Florida, was a prosecutor in Broward County. And in Broward County, I was fighting the judge, the jury, the defendant, and the defense attorney. And so let me tell you, those liberal judges are something else. And so they try to dismiss out some of the things we were doing that was just outrageous. And so we had to fight all of them. But we stood up, we defended our victims, we went after violent criminals, and we put them away even in Broward County.
We've seen how some of these liberal judges can act and behave and interpret the law in a way that it was never meant to be interpreted. I talk to my attorney all the time, and it's interesting you say that. I go, why don't you run in politics? And he goes, I can't take the pay cut. He said, I can't do it. I've got a business to run. I've got a family to feed. People don't realize that when you take this role that you've taken, the path you've taken, what you're truly giving up and what you're walking away from, it's not for the money. It's not for the prestige. It's because you truly love your nation. And I appreciate, I've always seen that in you, and I appreciate that very much. I think we got to have another show. I think we got to talk a little bit more. There's some other issues.
Let's do it.
So we'd love to have you come back. But as we wind down, tell people how they can support you.
So you can go to voterenter.com, VOTE, RENNER, RENNER. Same way forwards and backwards. VoteRenner.com. You can volunteer. You can throw a few pennies into the pot. We'd appreciate that. These campaigns are very expensive to get your message out to 23 million Floridians. And come support us. We'd love to see you.
Now, y'all have volunteer roles that y'all need and people you need to come out and help.
Absolutely. Sharing things. We have obviously accounts on X and Facebook and Instagram and so forth. Share things that you think are relevant with your friends so they can get to know us a little bit. And when we're in your county, which we will be, we'd love to see you. Love to have you come out and introduce yourself.
We welcome you to come back anytime. And I want to be one of the first ones to say it. Congratulations on becoming our next governor of the great state of Florida.
You've been listening to The Joe Mullins Show. Find out more and engage with Joe by visiting the website, themullinscompanies.com. That's themullinscompanies.com.